My brother-in-law, Darren, stood in my living room, his face a contorted mask of rage, veins throbbing in his neck. "Did you forge documents?" he bellowed, spittle flying, his voice an ugly bark. I took a slow, deliberate sip of my Earl Grey, the warm mug a steadying presence in my hands. The new tenants had just paid me, not them. The truth had finally hit him. "Check the city land registry," I said, my voice calm, almost a whisper, yet infused with an iron resolve. Then, with a quiet click, I closed the door, leaving him in stunned, impotent silence. That moment, the quiet victory, was sweeter than any revenge I could have imagined. My name is Sophia, and my world shattered the day I became a widow. My husband, Leo, my kind, gentle, and hard-working soulmate, was gone, taken by a sudden, cruel illness that left me reeling, adrift in a sea of grief. He left me with 2 young children, Maya, a sweet, thoughtful 6-year-old, and Noah, my energetic, curious 7-year-old, and 3 acres of land on the bustling, up-and-coming edge of our city. It wasn't a sprawling estate in the suburbs, but a modest, perfectly located plot, a hidden gem amidst the urban sprawl. This land, more than just dirt and trees, was our anchor, our last tangible link to Leo, and, crucially, our entire future. We lived simply, frugally, and that land was our security blanket, our safety net in a world that suddenly felt terrifyingly uncertain. Then his family arrived. Darren, Leo's older brother, and his wife, Brenda. They descended upon my small home, cloaked in what seemed like genuine, heartfelt concern. "We'll help manage the land, Sophia," Darren declared, his voice thick with what I now know was profoundly feigned sympathy. He even placed a comforting, if somewhat condescending, hand on my shoulder. Brenda, usually so critical and judgmental, nodded vigorously, her eyes, usually sharp and calculating, softened with an unnerving, almost sickening pity. "You don't know how to handle property, dear," she cooed, her voice saccharine. "All this legal stuff, permits, development, it's too much for a grieving mother. Just focus on the kids." That's what Leo would have wanted. Their words, delivered with a deceptive blend of authoritative male guidance and compassionate female reassurance, were exactly what I, a grieving, overwhelmed, and utterly vulnerable mother, was desperate to hear. Their family, I told myself, they want what's best for us. They wouldn't betray Leo's trust. The thought felt like a balm to my raw grief. I trusted them because they were Leo's family. They were his family. They presented me with official-looking documents, thick packets of papers filled with legal jargon that swirled before my tear-filled eyes. I barely registered the fine print, the clauses buried deep within the convoluted paragraphs. "It's temporary, Sophia, just until you're back on your feet," Darren assured me, his finger tracing a line on one of the pages, subtly distracting me from the real content. "Just paperwork to keep things moving. For the children's future. You wouldn't want to lose this opportunity, would you?" He subtly injected a hint of urgency, a touch of subtle manipulation, preying on my anxieties. My heart ached with the immense responsibility of providing for my kids, of preserving Leo's legacy, and their offer, presented so convincingly, felt like a lifeline, a benevolent hand extended in my darkest hour. I didn't have a lawyer, I couldn't afford one. My mind was too fogged with sorrow to even consider seeking outside counsel. Blinded by grief, desperate for support, and utterly naive, I signed. That was my mistake. But only the first one. Weeks bled into months, and their management of the land took an alarming turn, shedding its benevolent facade to reveal something far more sinister. The quiet plot that had been a sanctuary for my children and me began to transform. The gentle rustle of leaves was replaced by the roar of machinery. Construction started. Heavy equipment, giant excavators, and bulldozers rumbled across the soil, tearing at the familiar landscape, digging deep foundations where wildflowers once bloomed. The once tranquil mornings were now filled with the clang of steel and the shouts of workers. My neighbors, curious and sometimes gossipy, would frequently ask, "What are they building on your land, Sophia? Looks like a big project." Each question was a fresh stab to my gut, a knot of dread forming in my stomach. Darren and Brenda weren't just managing it, they were aggressively developing it, building something massive, imposing, and entirely alien to the tranquil space Leo had loved, completely without my consultation or consent. I confronted them, my voice trembling with a mixture of growing fear and indignant disbelief. We met at a sterile, upscale coffee shop downtown, their chosen territory, far from my comfortable neighborhood. "What exactly are you doing?" I demanded, my hands clenched under the table, barely visible. "Why didn't you tell me about all this construction? I see workers all over our property." Darren merely shrugged, his expression dismissive, almost bored, as if discussing trivial matters. "You gave us control, Sophia," he stated, as if speaking to a simple-minded child. "It's all in the agreement you signed. Don't come crying now. You're just bitter because you don't understand business. It's a good investment." Brenda chimed in, her tone dripping with saccharine condescension, a faint, cruel smirk playing on her lips. "Honestly, Sophia, you're so emotional. You're still grieving. This is for the best. For your financial stability. You really should trust us. We're doing this for you, out of the goodness of our hearts." Their words were a brutal slap, dismissing my concerns, invalidating my feelings, painting me as an irrational, hysterical widow, incapable of understanding complex matters. They were already collecting rent from high-paying tenants, sleek, young professionals eager for modern living close to the city, their pockets filling lavishly with money that, by all rights, should have been ours. I said nothing more to them that day. My throat felt thick with unshed tears, but beneath the surface, a cold, unwavering resolve began to set in. They think I'm weak. They think I'm stupid. They will regret this. I wasn't bitter. I was calculating. My children were noticing too. My 7-year-old son, Noah, would point from the car window as we drove past the construction site. "Mom, who lives there now? Is that our house? Can we go play there?" My heart would ache, breaking anew each time. How could I explain to my innocent children that the land their father had left us, their inheritance, their future, was slowly, systematically being taken from us by their own aunt and uncle? The thought ignited a quiet, simmering fury within me. I had to protect my children, protect their future, protect what was rightfully theirs. The pattern of their deceit was undeniable, growing bolder and more audacious with each passing day. The initial empathy they feigned had evaporated entirely, replaced by a cold, arrogant disregard for my well-being and my children's inheritance. It felt like a slow, deliberate strangulation of our dreams, a silent theft of our security. I felt a growing sense of isolation, a painful awareness that I was truly alone in this fight, but that loneliness, surprisingly, only hardened my resolve. They will not win, I vowed to myself, a silent promise echoing in the chambers of my grieving heart, not while I still breathe. I will fight for my children's legacy. The breaking point arrived not with a dramatic confrontation, but with a simple, ordinary piece of mail that sealed their fate. A registered letter, thick and official-looking, addressed to Darren and Brenda Reed, but mistakenly delivered to my mailbox, likely due to the similar street number on the newly built duplex. My hands trembled slightly as I slit open the envelope, a strange sense of foreboding washing over me. Inside was a comprehensive lease agreement, detailing the exorbitant rent the tenants, a young couple working in tech, were paying for the duplex built on my land. The amount was staggering, more than I could have imagined, enough to live comfortably for years without working. I stared at the figures, the zeros mocking my trust, my vulnerability, my grief, each digit a stark reminder of their profound betrayal. My vision blurred, not with tears of sorrow this time, but with a blinding, incandescent rage that burned hotter than anything I had felt before. They weren't just managing. They were exploiting. They were profiteering, lavishly, from my profound vulnerability, from my husband's legacy, from my children's birthright. This wasn't just about money, it was about the brutal, soul-crushing betrayal of family, about a blatant disregard for my family's future, about an injustice so profound it twisted my gut into a knot of steel. The burning coal in my chest erupted into a wildfire, consuming all hesitation. I felt a cold calm descend upon me, replacing the raw anger, a dangerous clarity of purpose. This was it. This was the precise moment. The silent, calculating anger had reached its boiling point. They think I'm a naive fool, a helpless widow, I thought, a quiet, dangerous promise to myself. They will regret ever underestimating me. I will make them regret it in a way they never see coming. I would not let them get away with this. I would reclaim what was mine, not just for myself, but for Leo and, most importantly, for my children. Their future depended on it. The next few months were a blur of intense, secretive activity. I spent every spare moment at the City Land Registry office, poring over dusty ledgers, microfiche, and obscure legal texts. My nights were filled with endless research, fueled by strong coffee and an unyielding determination, my laptop screen illuminating the dark room as I delved into online legal databases and scholarly articles. My days were a delicate dance of normalcy for my children, ensuring they felt loved and secure, interspersed with hushed conversations with sympathetic clerks and archivists who, sensing my quiet desperation, offered quiet guidance and pointed me to relevant documents. I learned about property laws, about the intricacies of land ownership, about clauses and precedents, about statutes of limitations and the concept of undue influence and unjust enrichment. It was tedious, complex, and at times utterly disheartening, feeling like I was swimming against a powerful current, but each discovery fueled me. But then, a glimmer of hope. I discovered a little-used clause in state property law, an almost archaic legal loophole that allowed for the reversal of land transfers if they could be proven to have been made under emotional duress or undue influence, especially by a legal widow and sole custodian of minor children. It was a long shot, a rarely invoked provision, but it was my shot. It was the crack in their fortress. I filed the motion. Quietly. Legally. I used what little savings I had, and even borrowed from a distant, trusting aunt who had always believed in me, to retain a lawyer, Ms. Ramirez, a sharp, no-nonsense woman with a formidable reputation for tenacity in property disputes. She listened to my entire story, her expression unreadable, then nodded slowly, a steely glint in her eyes. "It's a difficult case, Sophia," she warned, "but not impossible. We'll fight, and we'll fight to win." She understood my plight, my quiet desperation, and she believed in my case with an almost personal conviction. We worked in secret, gathering every shred of evidence, the mistaken lease agreement, meticulous timelines of their deceptive actions, my husband's will, even old photos showing the untouched land before their management, demonstrating the clear change in use. We built an irrefutable argument, a meticulous timeline of their systematic betrayal. By the time Darren and Brenda finished building the duplex and had collected months of exorbitant rent, smug in their perceived success and their effortless profits, the land was already legally back in my name. They didn't know. They had no idea their carefully constructed scheme was unraveling, piece by calculated piece, directly beneath their feet. The revelation came on a crisp Tuesday morning. Darren, ever the creature of habit, always collected the rent checks on the first of the month. When the payment for the duplex didn't arrive, he undoubtedly called the tenants, probably with his usual bluster. The phone call must have been explosive, filled with his confusion and growing panic. Moments later, my doorbell rang, a frantic, insistent peal that reverberated through the quiet house. He came storming into my humble living room, his face contorted with fury, almost unrecognizable, a prominent vein visibly throbbing in his temple. Brenda was right behind him, her usual composed demeanor replaced by a pale, panicked expression, her eyes wide with dawning horror. "Did you forge documents?" he screamed, his voice raw with disbelief and rage, echoing through the small space. "Are you insane? This is our investment. Our money. What have you done, you witch?" He was a whirlwind of rage and disbelief, his eyes darting wildly around the room, searching for an explanation, for any sign of a lie. I didn't flinch. I had anticipated this moment, rehearsed it in my mind countless times, preparing myself for their outrage. My heart beat a steady rhythm, a drum of quiet triumph, a counterpoint to his frantic shouts. I simply pointed to Ms. Ramirez, who sat calmly on my sofa, a sleek black briefcase resting on her lap, a faint, knowing smile playing on her lips. "My lawyer," I said, my voice steady, betraying none of the turmoil I had endured, none of the sleepless nights or the gnawing fear that had plagued me for months. "She'll explain everything." Darren's eyes darted to Ms. Ramirez, then back to me, a flicker of bewildered panic in their depths, as if seeing me for the first time, not as a helpless widow, but as an adversary. Brenda gasped, her hand flying to her mouth, her face a ghastly white, her usually sharp features slack with shock. They screamed, a cacophony of accusations and threats, a desperate attempt to regain control. They threatened to sue, to ruin me, to drag my name through the mud, to tell everyone what a terrible person I was. Their voices were a torrent of desperate, impotent anger, their grand scheme collapsing before their eyes. Ms. Ramirez, however, remained utterly unperturbed. She simply smiled, a polite but firm smile that seemed to radiate quiet confidence and professional authority. "Please do," she said, her voice clear and authoritative, cutting through their frantic ranting like a surgeon's scalpel. "The court has already ruled in our favor. You'll only lose more money, more time, and likely face legal sanctions for harassment and potential fraud. We have all the documentation of undue influence." The words hung in the air, a chilling, definitive pronouncement. The color drained from their faces entirely. Their bluster evaporated, replaced by a dawning horror, a sickening realization that their elaborate deception had utterly crumbled. They left, defeated, shaking with impotent rage and the cold shock of their utter failure. The silence after they left was profound, almost deafening, filled only with the soft, comforting ticking of my grandfather clock. My children, Maya and Noah, who had been huddled quietly in the next room, peeking around the doorframe, slowly emerged, their small faces etched with a mixture of concern and wide-eyed curiosity. Lily, my sensitive daughter, looked at me, her big eyes searching my face. Noah, always direct, asked, "Mom, are they going to yell anymore?" I pulled them close, hugging them tightly, burying my face in their soft hair, inhaling their innocent scent. "It's okay, my loves," I whispered, tears finally blurring my vision, tears of relief, not sorrow. "Mommy fixed it. It's all okay now. They won't bother us again." The tenants thankfully stayed. They were decent, understanding people, and once they fully comprehended the situation, they were visibly relieved to be dealing with the rightful and far more honest owner. They even offered to help if I needed any assistance, expressing genuine sympathy for what I had endured. Darren and Brenda's response was a predictable mix of initial shock, followed by indignant denial, and ultimately, a humiliated, bitter retreat. They tried, for a short while, to spread vicious rumors among the few remaining family members who still spoke to them, attempting to discredit me, to paint me as the manipulative one, the greedy widow. But the clear, irrefutable legal ruling, the undeniable county records, and Ms. Ramirez's firm, professional communications to anyone they tried to involve, shut down their fabricated narrative quickly. My vindication was quiet but complete, irrefutable, and devastating to their reputation within our community. My children, especially Noah, seemed to intuitively understand the profound shift. He looked at me with a newfound respect, a quiet admiration in his young eyes, no longer asking about their house, but asking, "Mom, can we plant flowers there now?" The suffocating shadow that had hung over our small family lifted, replaced by a tangible sense of peace, security, and liberation. We breathed easier, truly, for the first time in years. Life after the confrontation was a profound testament to resilience, to the quiet power of endurance, and to strategic, intelligent action. The duplex, now legally and fully mine, provided a stable, substantial income that completely transformed our lives. I wasn't just surviving anymore, barely scraping by. I was thriving, truly thriving. I continued to learn, immersing myself in books on property management, real estate law, urban planning, and investment strategies, spending evenings after the children were asleep devouring every piece of information I could find. I invested my earnings wisely, diversifying my assets. With the additional income, and with Ms. Ramirez's ongoing counsel, I meticulously planned and began building 2 more modern rental units on the remaining acreage, this time entirely in my name, with complete transparency and proper legal permits. The construction was overseen by trusted contractors, and I was involved in every step, ensuring everything was above board. My children now had a secure, prosperous future, one I had fought for and won, not with screaming or aggression, but with intellect and unwavering determination. The entire grueling experience taught me invaluable lessons about trust, about the deceptive, predatory nature of some relationships, even within one's own family, and most importantly, about my own profound, untapped strength and capabilities. I reflected constantly on the naive, grieving young widow who had signed away her future so carelessly. That woman was gone, replaced by someone stronger, wiser, fiercely protective of her family, and utterly self-reliant. I had learned to trust my instincts, to question, and to stand firm. Cutting ties with Darren and Brenda was an obvious, necessary step, a severing of a toxic limb that had threatened to poison our entire family tree. Their manipulative, dishonest presence had no place in our new, peaceful, and prosperous life. The positive impact on my children was immeasurable. They saw their mother stand tall, fight for what was right with quiet dignity, and emerge victorious against seemingly insurmountable odds. They learned invaluable lessons about justice, about perseverance, about self-worth, and about the quiet power of strategic, intelligent action. We had rebuilt, not just our finances, but our spirit, our confidence, and our future, brick by brick, with integrity. If you've ever felt trapped, silenced, or profoundly betrayed by those you trusted, especially family members who should have had your back, know that you are not alone. My story is a testament to the power of knowledge, quiet planning, unwavering resolve, and the courage to reclaim what is rightfully yours. Don't let anyone diminish your worth, steal your peace, or hijack your future. Educate yourself, seek expert legal counsel, and never, ever underestimate your own inner strength and ability to overcome. If my story resonated with you, if it sparked a flicker of recognition or hope, please like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to my channel for more stories of triumph over adversity. And tell me in the comments below, have you ever had to fight for what's yours against seemingly insurmountable odds? How did you outplan, outsmart, and outlast those who tried to take advantage of you? Your experiences and your strength can empower countless others. I didn't scream. I didn't fight with theatrics or public outbursts. I just outread, outplanned, and outlasted. And the profound, liberating silence of my hard-won victory was the sweetest sound of all.